Trying to narrow down the worst pay-per-views in WWE history can be a daunting task. Some shows are pretty bad, yet a match or two is still a great way to salvage it. Other shows are less dire than dull and forgettable. Everyone has their biases, so trying to figure out what truly it can be the worst WWE pay-per-views ever is a very tough call. That's why using AI such as Chatgpt can offer interesting results. Notable is that typing in this question can offer some unexpected outcomes. Sure, there are some shows almost universally acknowledged as very crap indeed, yet others that some might say aren't so bad. There can be an emphasis on more modern shows, but a few classic pay-per-views do pop up too. It's telling just what results as these are what AI counts as the worst pay-per-views ever in WWE, and shows how tricky a question like this can be. Welcome to Honor Wrestling Club. In today's video, we asked ChatGPT what it thinks the 10 worst pay-per-views ever are in WWE history. These are the results. Welcome to the club. In number 10, we start with Great Balls of Fire 2017, which got picked out for the name, as it's a less bad show than just a silly one. This seems less the show itself and more the name that gets it on AI's bad side. It's one of the dorkier names in wrestling history, even if the show itself isn't too bad. Seth Rollins vs Bray Wyatt was short yet fun, only to be followed by Enzo and Cass proving they were better partners and opponents. The Hardys vs the Bar Iron Man match was surprisingly dull, while Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks had a low-key fight. Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman had a better brawl than AI gives them credit for, and the Samoa Joe vs Brock Lesnar Dream match was a good main event. Again, this is less the match quality than AI slamming the silly name to put it on the list of WWE's worst pay-per-views. However, the song is pretty good that goes with it. In number 9, we have the 1995 Royal Rumble, which was the worst Rumble. The shorter Rumble was not better. As AI puts it, this is easily the worst Royal Rumble match ever. That overlooks how poor the rest of the undercard was. Jeff Jarrett winning the Intercontinental title from Razor Ramon wasn't too bad, but followed by a wretched IRS vs Undertaker bout. The title match between Brett and Diesel could have been good, but was marred by huge interference and took too long to make it into a letdown. The tag title match was only there to promote the Bam Bam Bigelow vs Lawrence Taylor clash. The Rumble itself had WWE making the foolish idea of 1-minute intervals, which robbed it of its power, as you can't plan any actual spots. So while Shawn Michaels became the first man to draw number 1 and win the whole thing, it wasn't that big a deal as he barely lasted 40 minutes. So, as AI says, the Rumble itself was an experiment gone wrong to kick off a bad year for WWE. In number 8 we have the Great American Bash 2004, which was a baffling main event and a really disjointed show throughout. This is a pretty obvious pick that any intelligence, artificial or otherwise, would note as a bad show. The 4-way opener for the US Championship wasn't too bad. JBL winning the WWE title from Eddie Guerrero was at least a good brawl. Then there's Luther Reigns vs Charlie Hart, Kenzo Suzuki vs Billy Gunn, and Tori Wilson vs Sable, which were atrocities and wouldn't be fit for blooming Velocity. The Cruiserweight WWE title bouts did spark some things up, only for one of the worst main events in history, as The Undertaker faced the Dudley Boys in a concrete crypt match. Why this went on last made zero sense, and neither did the ending of Undertaker winning and saving Paul Bearer, and then deciding to bury him in concrete anyway. AI is dead right on how terrible this show was, and a weak bit in WWE that year. In number 7, we have WrestleMania 9, which is no surprise, as AI does decide here to pick one considered the worst Mania ever. If there's one WrestleMania AI was going to pick as the worst, it's no surprise it's this one. For a show meant to be a huge deal in Las Vegas, this WrestleMania was quite weak, with a card that ranged from lacklustre to terrible. There were some decent bouts, such as the Head Shrinkers vs the Steiners, and Shawn Michaels vs the Tanker, but then we got the horrendous Undertaker vs Giant Gonzalez, air quotes, battle. The Mega Maniacs vs Money Inc. tag title match was a slog with a lame finish. The culmination was the infamous main event with Bret Hart losing the WWE Championship to Yokozuna, and then Yoko dropping it a minute later to Hulk Hogan, for no reason whatsoever. AI nicely says it was a finish no one wanted, and the Hogan Ego trip capping off one of the worst Manias ever. In at number 6, we have King of the Ring 1995, which was an atrocity, as one of the worst shows of possibly the worst year in WWE history. This is another no-brainer among AI's choices. One of the worst moments of one of the worst years in WWE history. The bracket itself was awful enough with some horrific matches. The choice of Mabel as King of the Ring was not popular in the least, and this led to some dreadful feuds. There was also the pathetic Kiss My Foot match between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler. The main event of Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow versus Sid and Tatanka was bad, and AI summarises the show was flat, unmemorable, and would lead to some of the worst feuds of 1995. When prime Shawn Michaels couldn't make this memorable, that says it all. Sticking with 1995, we have Survivor Series 1995, which we have to say is a bit of a surprising pick, as it's a bad show, don't get me wrong, but it's not the worst Survivor Series ever. It might be surprising that this show got picked when there were worse Survivor Series shows, such as the previous 2 years' editions. However, AI summarises that a good main event didn't make up for the poor pacing and booking. The opener wasn't too bad, even if mostly borderline jobbers were involved, and the women's match was rough. Goldust vs Bam Bam Bigelow was out of place, and then one match was just to push Undertaker as a monster. The wildcard match had a few fun bits, such as Shawn kicking Sid, and the main event was largely fine, with Bret Hart finally ending Diesel's interminable title reign in one of the Big Daddy Cool's better matches. One would think that another Survivor Series card would be singled out, but AI seems to believe this show stood out as the worst of the bunch, which we do feel here at our Wrestling Club is a little bit harsh. As after all, there was no doink matches on this one, as there were one in 1993 and then an even worse one in 1994. In at number 4, we have Hell in a Cell 2019, with the worst Hell in a Cell match ever, as a poor show ended in the dumbest fashion possible. The fact that most of this show wasn't announced until days before was a major warning sign. Still, few could imagine just how awful it was going to be. The Sasha Banks vs Becky Lynch opener was exemplary with a fantastic brawl, so we'll start with the positives. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns against Luke Harper and Eric Rowan was also a pretty good match, while Randy Orton vs Ali was alright. The women's tag title match was bad, with the OC vs Braun Strowman and the Viking Raiders being a TV match that they gave pay-per-view time to. Charlotte vs Bayley was alright, but it mostly existed to set up Bayley's heel turn. However, it's the main event that is what gives this show its bad reputation. I'm sure you've heard many people tell you about the terrible Seth Rollins vs The Fiend Hell in a Cell match that somehow ended in a disqualification finish. AI is correct in how the matches were lacklustre and the booking of Bray had to offset any good on this show. In at number 3, we have Royal Rumble 2015, which started the Roman hate, as fans wanted Daniel Bryan to shine. It's always the Royal Rumble itself folks tend to focus on, but the rest of the show was pretty tricky too. The Ascension were wasted against the New Age Outlaws, as the tag title match was iffy, a terrible women's tag title match, and then some dumb skits. At least there was a match of the year contender underneath to try and cleanse the palate a little, because with John Cena versus Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar being a top level fight that managed to elevate the show just a little bit. But on the Royal Rumble pay-per-views, it's always the Rumble itself that gets the slams, and AI perfectly sums up how fans had wanted Daniel Bryan to win it, only for him to be eliminated midway through, like a total rookie. Thus, poor Roman Reigns was booed heavily, his big win was not accepted, and even the big movie man with the big arms coming out was wasted in a cameo and couldn't help things. AI mimics the feelings of others that the choice of winner left a sour taste in the mouths of fans for one of the worst Rumbles ever. In number 2, we have Battleground 2017, which boasted an awful main event, as nobody wanted Jinder Mahal as champion. The show itself started off fairly well with the New Day versus the Usos, and those teams seem incapable of having a bad match with one another. Sadly, the rest of the show was downhill from here. Nakamura versus Corbin was rough, and then a terrible women's elimination bout. AJ Styles and Kevin Owens put on a good match together, even if some argued it was too soon for a title change. Then the bottom fell out with an awful Cena versus Rusev flag match that felt longer than it really was. Sami Zayn was wasted against Mike Kanellis, and then the main event had Jinder Mahal defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton in a Punjabi prisoner match for 30 minutes, with the Great Khali helping Mahal for no reason. AI summed up that what should have been a top moment for Mahal's reign was marred by his limited in-ring ability for a lousy main event. And in number 1, we're sticking with Battleground, as we have Battleground 2014, which was lacklustre, and this seems less horrible and more just bland. This may be a surprising choice, as the opener of the Usos versus the Wyatt family is a terrific and top-tier tag match, so you should probably go check out again, because it's better than you're remembering. That was followed by slower bouts of Paige versus AJ Lee, Jack Swagger versus Rusev, and then the hot Bray Wyatt losing to Chris Jericho, after he'd just been battered by Cena for months. The Intercontinental title battle royal was also poor, with Dolph Ziggler winning it. The main event was an okay battle of Cena, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns and Kane. It's not the worst choice, but felt like a letdown. There was also the baffling brawl between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. It's not the most awful show around, yet AI seems to think a good opener and finish doesn't make up for the lacklustre butting and bounce in between. And there you have it, there's our list. That is the pay-per-views AI thinks are the 10 worst in WWE history. But what do you think? What do you think is the 10 worst or the worst pay-per-views in WWE history? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the like button and the subscribe button to make sure you never miss out on any of the content we produce here at Honor Wrestling Club. Be sure to check out our other videos and leave any feedback you may have, as it's always appreciated and valued. So I'd just like to thank you for watching and welcome you to the club. See ya!